Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator, come back to you with another video. And in this video, I have Lee Brice, a veteran animator. Welcome to the Black Woman Animator YouTube channel. And I just want to give you some time to introduce yourself.
I'm Lee Brice. Online I call myself Jerry No Joke. I've been in the animation industry professionally since 1985. I've done a lot of in-house work, but I've also done a lot of independent productions and music videos and service work for music videos, etc. for the animation industry, as well as I had a long relationship with the P-Funk artists with Overton Lloyd and George Clinton, and I did a very popular comic, popular underground comic when it was out in the Source magazine and Herb magazine from their inception until like 1995. And at that time, MTV picked it up, and they were trying to develop an animated series. I ended up doing, some PSAs for them, and that led me to a lot of other opportunities to develop and sell my own series.
Cool.
I mean, yeah, and a lot of other, kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Also, an animation teacher too. Like, that's one thing I can want. Animation instructor.
So what was your childhood art journey?
My childhood art journey was like had a lot to do with the Church of God in Christ. I started doing a lot of drawings with my brother, TV shows where you could draw and win a chest of toys. So, we kind of did that, and I won. And they had my picture up there. I won a chest of toys, then draw Spunky, so drawing, I started getting noticed for drawing at a young age, and all my friends kind of were entertained by my drawings and my comics, and so I started to respond to that, and then get more and more into it. Started to study art. Teachers, my elementary teacher exposed me to what an animator is, and I just started to research that, and it's basically entertaining my friends led me to inspire me to want to do it more and better. And then I started just gaining interest Leonardo da Vinci at an early age, and Pablo Picasso especially. And so I started to try to emulate their drawings as well, because people copy. When you're young, you copy drawings. Because it went over my head. The things about anatomy did excite me, because my mom was, she had a lot of anatomy books, so that did, but so I studied a lot of traditional art and sketching inspired by Leonardo da Vinci and Pablo Picasso, so my interest kind of went down the whole artistic realm. The city of San Diego had a very good after-school program for artists. So, for like the Proposition 13 that defunded all those after-school programs, we had a very rich after-school program. So I was always in the, with artists in La Jolla, because San Diego, it's a beach community. So there's a lot of, famous artists or prominent artists that live here that would interface with youth. And I benefited from all those artists, and I learned, I was exposed to professional artists, painters, commercial artists at a very young age. And they just encouraged me in a path direction where I would learn basic art skills, traditional art skills. And that led me to college.
So were your parents very supportive of your artistic endeavors?
Well, they weren't unsupportive. My dad was he was a contractor, but people of his generation, he's from down south. It wasn't really a realistic, for them, that wasn't something that was normal, or not normal, but something that they felt was available for Black people, bottom line, because you're coming from a Jim Crow South, so we're more like, they were sharecroppers and they were migrant farmers, and then from the migrant farming thing, that's how we got out west. And then, my dad and grandfather started, being laborers in construction and working their way up to that. So it's kind of like, that's what they saw as being able for a Black person to make a living in America, as well as education. It's going to be a real smart school teacher, or be an independent businessman or a preacher. So it wasn't no artist, but my dad, being a builder, he would draw, beautiful buildings. He was really skillful at drawing buildings, in perspective for the plans, or just to visualize buildings that he was going to build or what he was working on, because he worked with a lot of plans. And then I picked up on that. He's a really good illustrator. And he probably, if he had, had the training, he probably could have been an architect or something because he's really good, at drawing buildings. So no, he didn't discourage it. They after a while, I had like a lot of motivation with entrepreneurialism because there was a lot of black businessmen that I was exposed to. So I was always was exposed to trying to do for self. So, I had no problem here in San Diego contacting, I would look in the telephone book, and if your name was under artist or comic book, I would just start contacting people from the telephone book. And I started to meet a lot of older artists that, would kind of cajole the young person. And, I got a lot of direction from the local, art community here in San Diego when I was a kid. As well as I got acknowledgement from the local journalism community. Our local newspapers ran articles about me. I was always trying to hustle a comic strip to the Voice and Viewpoint, and they ran it sometimes. I had a religious comic strip that called Ezra that I was trying to get in local newspapers. I had no problem, cold calling somebody. I would copy the presentations that I would read about from United Feature Syndication, because the people syndicated Charlie Brown, which was a comic strip that what I mean, spoke to me. So and Charles Schultz was a hero, so I would just study. I would read a lot because we really didn't get an opportunity to do anything but that, go to church, read, play music. Really didn't do team sports. Pops wasn't into that. But yeah, you know what I mean? But other with my brother, my brother's really smart, but yeah, we were more like entrepreneurial. So I was always trying to find a way to make money or to, find a commercial exposure for my art and be respected as, as a kid, trying to be respected as a professional, trying to just hustle, to the world.
Can you talk about the support that you received through your church and your pastor?
Yeah, I went to, so I'm a member of the Church of God in Christ, and like I have uncles and cousins that are bishops and whatever, and here in San Diego we had a Bishop Blake. Late Bishop Blake was a jurisdictional preacher. They would break up the national church would break up America into like 12 jurisdictions back at that time, and each bishop would have like his jurisdiction. Now there's more bishops because the jurisdictions are smaller. So if you think about politics, how that works, but back then there was 12, you know what I mean? So Bishop Blake was one of those, and our jurisdiction was Southern California, right? You know what I mean? Northern California and Texas. We had a big jurisdiction. We had all the money too. You know what I mean? Yeah, all the money, LA, right? So, San Diego. So, so I was little, Bishop Blake was a local pastor, a friend of my father, grew up with grew up kind of like I was his nephew, and all his cousins or nieces and nephews. We all grew up, and a lot of people thought we were all related. My father, my uncle was the head deacon for the church. So, I was exposed to a lot of, mega preachers in the Church of God in Christ. Bishop Patterson we go to Memphis, Tennessee all the time, St. Louis. If you understand the Church of God in Christ, not only were we like singing and running and doing music, but they were preaching and being bishops and running jurisdictions. And Bishop Blake was the late Bishop Blake. I'm not talking about Charles Blake, who is the head of the church now. That's his son, who's head of the entire church, been head of the church for a while now. But I was right along from like 8, 6, 7, 8, right along with Bishop Blake. He took interest in me and supported me in everything that I did. And I learned a lot about politics and dealing with people and organizing communities. And, I would handle certain things for the church with community groups, we took the oath of, that I took seriously to the church back then. I used to want to be a preacher. And I guess, like there's certain level, like people say you don't really get rid of that kind of calling. So I don't know if I'll ever be in the pulpit preaching again. I definitely do that if I want to, but I definitely feel like, my artwork is the testimony I have.
Well, how would you describe your style of animation?
So let me ask you this, when you talk about animation, do you mean the way it moves? Because when you say style, I'm asking that question because obviously I got into animation like the generation of like 1985 professionally. So we were dealing, at Cal Arts, we were looking at like my favorite film as far as animation, which I look at which I define as choreography and movement, is Snow White, and act. I look at Snow White, that's like the epitome and of what I want to do with animation. That's my favorite animated film as far as the stylistically, the way it moves, lot of times people ask me this question nowadays, young people, or just, you know, society in general, when they ask me about a style, they're really talking about illustration.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're talking about an illustration, like the kind of characters I illustrate personally, like if I was gonna, I would say P-Funk style, but that has nothing to do with the animation. You know? I would say I would
however
like,
however you would like to answer the question and what you consider style is. That's
I guess I could, man. Well, yeah, that's true. I guess I just put that out there.
So in the form of movement,
the way it moves.
now that you have introduced it to me, the way it moves.
What do you think the audience? What do you think the audience? Because I guess I did put out there, you know, deliberately. You know what I mean?
But
I would say people do ask me that question. I guess let me just be more straight. When a lot of times when people ask me that question, and this is me, they kind of blur the lines between style, illustration style, and movement. And I would say that would be some of your most prominent animators. You know, so you know, in my generation,
but I feel like we're highlighting your brain and how you think. So if you want to go with style with the movement, then we can do that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I think that's a statement. The way, if it's the style, the way it moves, are like, you know, Snow White, the Disney style of motion. The way things look, you know, I tend to draw like a P-Funk style. But I definitely have a distinction, audience, between, you know, animation, which means motion, and style. A lot of times, illustration style or the way it looks is a different thing.
So in that,
illustration,
you know, the Snow White form of movement, what do you think that brings to animation, and what do you think is kind of missing maybe in today's style of animation?
Well, I don't want to really diss anybody in today's style of animation, because there's a whole lot of things out there that are being animated, but I tell you what I like. You know what I mean? Because I don't think like I need to negate anybody else's style. I just think like you just have to define what you like and understand what it is. Especially when you're communicating with people clearly. I like character animation. I like the subtleties of making a series of drawings like a Snow White. You know, basically it's just a series of rough drawings that we clean up and paint. You know, Disney films, even at that day, they didn't have a lot of tone. Like my face has shadow, so there's not a lot of tone to give it that 3D quality like we do today. Right. So you're really you're really suggesting volume by weight. You know what I'm saying? By weight. Yeah. You know, and then the acting, you know, and then so it's a flat 2D drawing that you present in a 3D way with the lack of lines. You know, there's not a lot of line quality, so it's all motion. So the subtle mode, the slow actions to me are kind of like what make you relate to the character. And what I mean by relating to the character is like Snow White, I really care about her as far as what happens to her, so I relate to her as a human, as a real person. You know, so internally I internalize her. I believe that anything that's happening to her on screen has a plausibility in reality that she could get hurt. So if she gets hurt, I'm gonna feel, you know, some sort of emotion toward like hesitation, like stop, don't get hurt. You know, I'm gonna feel that I don't want this character to get killed, and if she dies, I'm gonna care about it. You know, I'm gonna have some human emotion about it. I'm not just passively watching a series of drawings flatly move across the screen. The thing they address all the illusions that I need in character animation that I like, you know, that I find challenging. Yeah. You know, that I like to spend my time trying to achieve. I'm not saying that I've achieved it yet, but I like the subtle, slow actions, the slow building actions, the things that you know you have a pencil with. I got like 100 pencil lines. I'm like slightly moving, you know, but I'm not just sliding it forward, because you can do that in Flash or really easy. But I'm slightly moving, and maybe I'm kind of twisting that volume, kind of slightly to where it's like, or maybe even slightly moving the camera in a 3D angle to where it's like I have to draw everything. Everything is calculated in realistic times. Like if you look at this shot now, I used to tell my students, you know, if you do a close-up shot, like it's really tight here, but you can see like a lot of artists would storyboard, they would drop a color card behind me and just go flat, you know, or the artist would not spend that much time on the close-up shots. But I told the students, that's what you take for granted. What you take for granted in reality are the things that you have to address in your drawing or in your composition in animation, so that the audience subtly connects to it as reality without having to shade, do all that drawing, you know. So the thing is, I like say what you want to do on the tight shots, you want to pump up the background, especially the distance. If it's not up against the wall, obviously, you know, but right
Yeah.
now it has distance behind me. You want to pump that up. You don't want to like lazily draw that. You want to create that distance so that, you know, even if you do put it on a diffuse, you know, you still have that space. It looks realistic. Take some time, you know, and even if it's not that big of a deal, if you take the time to do it, it's going to end up being a big deal in the shot. So the audience will connect to it. I can guarantee you that. And that makes the difference between like a $15 million movie or 150 million.
Definitely. So I am gonna list a lot of the things you worked on, but I'm gonna ask specific questions about a couple of them. So you worked on you did the animated character in the Good Girls Your Sweetness music video. You did the dancing cat character in Paula Abdul.
No, let me correct that. That's not true. Okay, I you know, I had a music video company called Brice Productions that I kind of like, you know, went for it. So I had an entity. It was just like a Pendulum Films or Old Pictures or anybody the videos. I had that. My production company was commissioned by Motown to produce that entire Good Girls video. So so I hired Bruce Smith, you know, to do the animation. I worked on the animation crew, and I directed. And me and my brother directed and co-produced that video. Like my brother was a producer, I was a producer, and I produced and directed it, as well as I produced the animation. I hired Bruce to direct the animation. I hired, you know, all the assistants, etc. I worked on that, but I also, you know, storyboarded with Bruce, whatever, the whole entire live action set. We set up that whole shot, hired everybody, you know, rented all the crew, security.
Nice.
Yeah, it wasn't no. So that's my problem because no, you know, on the so that's the difference between the Motown thing. And the characters, you want to understand that. That's important. And I think Black people need to know that. The Paula Abdul video, I was just one of the people that worked on the animation for that. I was a key assistant animator to Franz Vischer. To be honest with you, like Gemma Cofield, that was a head of urban music actually she's a vice president of urban music at Virgin America. She was good. She still is, you know, basically a lot of people know her husband is Don Was, but you know, Was Not Was, but you know, Gemma was a friend of mine. She's from the UK, but she ran Virgin Records America, which was a label, Paula Abdul and all that produced that. So, you know, I was in the mix at Virgin. I used to see her all the time. I still communicate with her a lot. Gemma Corfield and yeah. So, you know, when I found out about the video, because I've been trying to work with a group in England for the UK version called 52nd Street, which was which had a lot of hits on Virgin UK, and I did some styling and some art direction for them, and you know, with their record label and Gemma, I was trying to get them to do like an animated video with some live action elements, but mine was based on like a 1920s like Art Deco style. And I made this whole presentation at the time. They didn't go for that, but you know, me and Paula Abdul had the same manager. And so, you know, Paula got that going while I was working on Rover Dangerfield and doing my Motown thing. So Gemma, when she saw that going down, she informed me of that project. So they thought it would be cool if I got on that project so I would have that credit so I could use that in my promotion.
More stuff you worked on. You mentioned Rover Dangerfield. We're gonna talk about the Arsenio Hall animated series pilot. You did you were on Teen Summit, Oliver and Company, Back to Neverland, Little Mermaid, Tom and Jerry, King of the Hill. You worked with Brad Bird and Tim Burton on Family Dog. You did the Eminem. You worked on the Eminem role model video. Worked with the Gap Band, Bootsy Collins, etc., etc. Yeah, so to go back to the Paula Abdul Opposites Attract video, it's coming back around, but do you think in the 80s and 90s there was more respect for how animation could be consumed by adults? I feel like it was in a lot of commercials and stuff in the 80s and 90s, and it was like more prevalent as far as adult consumption, but then it went through the child it's only for kids thing, but it's coming back around to being for adults too. Are
you talking about for commercial TV type of thing?
Just animation in general.
Animation, because I mean, I don't know. It's like, well, okay, maybe I have a different understanding. I would say like in, like, you know, in the 90s during the MTV period with Beavis and Butthead, was that the adult kind of stuff you're talking about? Yeah, that was, you know, maybe that underground kind of thing. You you know, obviously, you know, when I was in Cal Arts in I graduated in Cal Arts in '85. So you got to understand, like, when I was at Cal Arts, I was in the film graphics and animation department. I was not in the Disney department, although I did a lot of those classes just to get, you know, my chops up to speed. But I was working with Bill Kopp, you know, I was working with Peter Chung, Bill Kopp, you know, the division of the school where we were kind of like pushing the experimentational level of animation. And so a lot of those guys got into directing. So, you know, so you got to understand, Wes Archer came through experimental animation, and he did a film called Jack, Mack, and Rad Boy Go. And every year that I was there, I would see him shoot it. You know, that film ended up being kind of like knocked off by Mike Judge, and, you know, which for a film that we saw called Beavis and Butthead. You know, so if you look at a film called Jack, Rack, and Mad Boy Go, I'm mentioning this because you got to understand, like, when I was in Cal Arts, a lot of those things that you're saying are adult animation, or people gave a label as adult. And Bill Kopp, with the, you know, Bill Kopp did a lot of stuff. You know, what was a film? One Crazy Summer was a film, and then he did a lot of series on, you know, on Fox. You know, the guy Michael Patterson was a classmate from Experiment Animation. He might have been a student teacher or graduated, you know, a year earlier than me, but he actually directed the AHA video, Take On Me. But that was based on his student film, and you can all look this up. That was based on his student film, Michael Patterson, called Metro, that he did with Jules Ingo, which was all our mentor. And Jules was a UPA art director, but he was basically a painter. You know what I mean? And you know, and that's kind of like what resonated with me to get me in animation when he said, ever think about making my paintings move, because I was thinking about being more of a painter. And you know, so I met him at an event. I was kind of young, and I was thinking about a transition. So there's a long story, but Jules Engel, I'm definitely one of his devotees, or one of his disciples. Along with Christine Panushka. I mean, it's some deep thing. If you guys, like, you know, I think the audience should know this. There's a whole distinction in animation, especially from that time period. There's you know, I do know all the Disney stuff, but there was a whole side of Disney. If you look at Fantasia, they had a lot of Russian immigrant, you know, art directing, you know, experimental UPA, the Gerald Boing Boing. That was something that Jules did. You know, he was our mentor. So I was more or less into the art direction. I know I said animation because, you know, I definitely am into the character animation, but also, you know, I was more more affected or influenced by the art direction, you know, level of the, you know, thing, to take it to a different level. Not just I'm trying to be a great animator, which a lot of my friends just want to be a great animator. And some of the guys wanted to be not only a great animator, but great stylist, which I think, like, if you look at, you know, Bruce Smith, you know, he's a great stylist. You know, he kind of, you know, had his own style that became, you know, a big thing. And Michael Patterson, the AHA video, he's the same guy that directed the Paula Abdul video. And I'll tell you how he did that. But, you know, if you look at his student film in the AHA video, which is always considered the #1 video, music video on the planet ever, that was, you know, sketchy style. That became an art directional thing, right? You know, so that kind of changed the game because of the way it looked, you know.
What do you feel is the key to keeping the weight of the character and making sure it doesn't look like it's floating, particularly when you worked on a 2D on live action kind of project? What's the key to, like, keeping it from being floating?
Well, it's simple. It's you know, like I think every one of my animation students will tell you that this is something that I specialize in. You know what I mean? It's like keeping weight, because that's the illusion, right? That's an illusion of life. Like, drawings don't have weight, you know. So if you look at pantomime, you know, like, weight is an illusion that you must achieve, and weight comes from the inside. You know, Glenn King would always teach us to animate from the inside out. So, you know, and he was talking about on an emotional level, you know, but also I took that, you know, again, I like Leonardo da Vinci, you know what I'm saying, in anatomy. So I also looked at, like, the anatomical construction of the character. So basically, you know, you got to look at how, you know, if you look at, like, the horizon line and how how gravity, you know, pulls a human on the ground, you know, we have weight distribution in our body. If you're standing up straight, or most of us are bipedal, or you have 4-legged characters, right? We're generally not equally distributing our weight from the left or right at any given time. generally, weight bearing on either the left side of your body or the right side of your body. And then you got to kind of look at like how the contrapposta in the body, the opposing angles is an artistic term, people, in Italian, but you got to kind of look at how the the counter angles in the body, because now you're talking about the rib cages, like I teach basic shapes a lot. So, skull, that's a box. You got the first vertebrae and the seventh vertebrae that creates like a counter angle joint. So I'm gonna swivel there. So basically then, my shoulders go, one is, the right is high, the left is down, so that's, so this, from the top of my shoulder to the bottom of my rib cage, say that's my upper torso box. My stomach, well, you see that's connected by my vertebrae. And I think we got 27 vertebrae, so that's like, but that's anatomy. But we have a vertebrae that connects, that's flexible, that connects the upper torso to the lower torso, which is our pelvis, which is our weight to the bottom of our crotch area. Now that's a box, right? Now that be at a counter angle to your upper torso. On that spinal column that connects all these joints. Then you have your legs connected to the hips. So basically, it's like your legs are connected to the ground, right? The feet connected to the ground. So your feet are going to be kind of bearing the weight from all that, settling counterweight. You're not floating. If you're not weight bearing, you're going to be like, all those angles are going to be straight, so there's not going to be any weight distributed on one side or the other, because you're not taking that into consideration, but taking into the opposing angles, the anatomical construction and balance, just like that exists in the physical world, and set that up in your drawing in each pose with step. Really when you're walking, you're lifting and falling and catching your weight and lifting that up. So and then every joint where it connects, you're gonna have like an opposing angle. And this is the trick. You have an opposing angle that opposes the angle at the joint from every pose. So when you sit that, when you hit, and then you got to be able to understand the joints in your body. So the foot isn't just one big plane. The foot have like, toes connected with toe knuckle, right? You know what I'm saying? Then the toes kind of like that, but then the foot itself has a front part of the paw, and that's kind of like, its own unit connected to the back part of the heel, so things don't hit the ground at the same time. So if you understand that, you can kind of like, hit the toe first, and then, the middle of the palm, hits the ground second, and then the last part of the heel hits the ground at the last part. That's when your foot is flat on the ground. And then, all those joints, that's when I would kind of oppose those angles, so it kind of sinks without going into the ground. It kind of sinks on that takes an opposing angle slightly, like maybe one pencil weight, so it sinks, so you break everything kind of down. The silhouette kind of drops down, and maybe you kind of, do this all the way down. But you're going to have that collision on the ground first when he takes that passing position to that contact. Because from the passing position where you actually all the weight is on that one leg and lifting up, obviously, so that's heavy. So you're gonna go from a real heavy pose to like, I lifted it up and now I'm kind of balanced. Then you're gonna lose balance and fall and catch yourself. And do it again. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot, man. I wish I could have just shown that, right? You know what I mean? Because I have walk cycles. I got my King of the Hill rough walk cycles all the way to the clean. Because I'm the one who animated Hank Hill, brought him to life for the first time. Correct. That they, I have a deep lesson. I can, if anybody want to learn how to like do a walk cycle formulaically, 3/4 walk cycle, and it's like I don't ever do like a flat side view or flat anything. I kind of like put the horizon line at eye level, so and I set the character kind of in the middle at a 3/4 angle. So basically, it's like half the body is under the horizon line and half the body is above the horizon. Why is that challenging? So when you take this is a human foot, if you're looking down at a human foot, there's going to be parts where you're going to want to show the bottom of the foot because it swings forward. But then if you're looking down at it, you got to ask yourself, how much of the bottom of the foot am I actually going to see on this character? And I think like how you handle that kind of determines, am I doing a cartoony character, Mickey Mouse, kind of like silly character where exaggeration, I'm going to show you it's going to be really exaggerated. You're going to see the bottom of the foot, except, or is it more human? Because humans don't really take large steps, and we don't really lift our feet that far off. We do lift our feet off the ground, but not that.
Right.
And then if the camera, if you're looking down at the camera, you're really not going to see the bottom of that. It's really challenging to draw a foot like that from the front view. When it foreshortens towards, so that's the challenge.
Yeah.
That that I'm very familiar with, you know, but it definitely, you know, you have to have a distinction between cartoony characters and realistic, you know, so the spacing for cartoony characters is broad, so you can, you know, and really broad characters are easier to do because I don't have to worry about like, okay, I'm gonna show you the bottom foot here because it's not real anyway, but it's gonna work for effect. You know what I mean? But if it's kind of like, you know, if you're doing Hank Hill, I'm not saying that he was realistic, but he, you know, somewhat proportionally realistic. You know, I approach it more realistic, not, you know, it's not ultra realistic, but you know, you understand what I'm saying? But it's closer realistic than, you know, Mickey Mouse. You know what I'm saying? His feet are small and everything, proportionally like human, kind of a thin, small hands, small feet. No, you can't really have a lot of exaggeration on that character, you know. And I can
so for Hyperion Studios, you mentioned being the Black Animation Crew Wrangler. Can you talk about that?
Okay, well, yeah, I can talk about that. That's a nickname that I got. You know, my friend Julian. No, actually, Julian Chaney is a brother. I don't know if you know, he's a storyboard artist, a good friend of mine, but he calls me the Black Whisperer. Because a lot of times, you know, still people call me, you know, you've been in the industry a long time. It's like, you know, we have white friends in the business, they become producers, etc. And they know, okay, like they got something on them. They want to do something really good. They want to hire some Black people, right? Some Black stories. It's always, you know, guys keep calling me. I don't want you to feel bad, you know, but it's always something like that. But, you know, like, you know, you gotta, if I'm a white guy, like, am I really comfortable saying that, hey man, I want to hire some Black people? They think that that's racist, or they're not really comfortable. But, you know, like, I got a relationship with people, like, you know, what are you trying to say? Oh, you want to hire Black? Yeah, sure. Okay, Jerry, you know what I'm saying? So I get into a conversation based off a relationship, and, you know, they get it out, and I'm like, you know, I reassure them it's a good thing, you know, it's great. Like, yeah, we need that. I'm actually happy that they feel like this. And then they express, then I want to go into express, you know, their frustration, because there's a lot of our white colleagues out there that are kind of frustrated, and they kind of tell me, you know, when they do get comfortable with expressing what they notice racially in their crews. Yeah. And I'm not even, I can tell you, you know, there's probably a lot of, well, I don't want to go there. You know what I mean? But I can tell you, like, you know, there's probably not a lot of us. There's some other minority, you know. But they want to hire them. And, you know, sometimes there's like, you know, there was I don't want to mention the guy's name, but it's on Warner Brothers, but I know there was a show being storyboarded, and a Black creator or something like that. And the call that I got was white guy, right? Old friend of mine. He worked on Black stuff with me, but, you know, he was like, man, you know, our Black creator kind of came to the studio, because usually don't, and he saw that there was no Black people working on it, etc. And he said, man, wouldn't it be great if we had some Black storyboard artists on this, you know? And he mentioned that, and we kind of like played it off, but yeah, we kind of like thought that might be a good idea, Jerry, you know, Black storyboard artists. And it's like, yeah, I know a lot of Black, see, it is like, you know, ageism. I know a whole lot of really qualified Black storyboard artists, that Emmy Award winning, lots of credits under their belts, Marvel big studios, that can't get arrested these days. I don't know why. You know, you know, they all, I mean, like, I don't know why. Vincenzo, you know, I mean, I can't tell you why. So I always try to recommend those people, you know, and get into a conversation like what kind of ageism is really going on. You know, you really don't think these guys, you really think their drawing is going to be different on the Cintiq than they're on paper? Are you that, you know, are you that dense? You know what I mean? I mean, I'm trying to get into their mind why they don't call some of these people that used to hire them. You know, Michael Swan again. Some people that are way talented, you know, Michael Swan again.
When I was talking to Dan, I was talking to Dan Haskett, he was saying that people like act like they can only hire people 30 and under. And so they act like kids have to create kids animation. And so that's how that ageism starts, because they don't think older people can do it.
Yeah, that's crazy. And, you know, maybe that's their justification. And they looked at like, you know, there used to be this thing, you're too young, but, you know, that should be your parents. But there used to be this thing in the 70s all the way into the mid 80s where Black people weren't looked at as being quarterbacks. That was just generally accepted in polite society by people. Literally, you'll look at like, you'll look at reports, you know, on TV. It's like we just generally accepted that we didn't have the mental capacity to be NFL quarterbacks. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Anybody out there agree with me? So basically, it's like sports kind of drive. That's the most popular sport in America. We definitely weren't being looked upon as coaches and stuff like that. I mean, Will Chamberlain was a player. He had to be player coach. Kind of, you know, you got to be super Negro, you know. But he was successful. But I'm saying that made the news. It wasn't like 10 people. You know, some of the point is like, you know, it's very rare that we got these leadership positions.
We're not seen as
just in general
intelligent beings. we're not seen as intelligent beings sometimes.
We weren't never seen as a child. We were looked at. You look at how Black people were looked at, you know, in traditional society, just by people that have, you know, like you got to understand. It's like, you know, I did a film. I used to get harassed by the Burbank Police Department going to Disney. You know, that's my story. I used to get harassed by the police, get stopped, and treated very, very badly. Because, you know, that was a white part of town, and I guess I kind of looked like I had some money or I shouldn't be there. Definitely, they thought I was a drug dealer. You know what I mean? That's what I got from, you know, that's where we looked at. You know what I mean? It was like, that was the mid 80s. So you got to, it's, you know, if they didn't believe, like I used to tell my coworkers that, you know, white coworkers, they'd be like, you know, and I used to accept this. They'd be like, these are friends of mine. Oh, Jerry, that's just you. You know, why are you always talking about race? That don't happen. Well, what did you do? You know, there was like some reason, you know, like, yeah, I might have been speeding, you know, but I'm saying everybody else was speeding too, dog. You know, they didn't get handcuffed and roughed up, you know. I mean, I'm just saying, it's like, no, I'm not Jesus Christ. Well, I'm gonna say I'm not like, you know, but no, I'm a regular. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I mean, okay, like again, but they say, okay, if you're not a perfect human being as a Black person, then you're worthy of death. You know, there was a reason that cop stopped you and got you on the ground and shot you. They feel perfectly comfortable with that now, you know, and so this is what's happening. So my friends would say that, Jerry, because all my comic strips and everything that I do is definitely about race. I used to, you know, have all Black people, you know, in my portfolio. And I used to do that because I started to get comments in my portfolio. Why doesn't he draw white people? Not about how skillfully it's drawn, it's just the race of the drawings, you see. And then I started to just troll. Because I wanted to see, but basically these are people that don't think they're racist, right? At all. They had one prejudice bone, and they're friends. These are friends of ours, right? People that respect them. We just like, okay, I'm just that guy that talks about race, you know, become cartoon characters to them. But, you know, really this is happening. So when the George Floyd was killed, when they saw that, you know, a few months ago, then it becomes like, well, damn, Jerry might have been right. I mean, I heard from everybody overseas. I mean, people overseas, like they just kind of like, you know, India. I talk about that. You know, that was
that was my next question.
that touched me because I heard from all my friends in India. You know what I mean?
Let's transition into that because you worked at Net Guru in Calcutta.
Yeah.
So how was your experience working overseas?
One of the most racist cartoons ever. You know what I mean? I'll agree, man. It's like, you know, probably, I don't know. Rock and soul.
Yeah, rock and soul. How was your experience working over there?
It was life-changing. It was life-changing. It was excellent. I mean, I'm telling you, like everybody go to Calcutta, India. Like I was there in like right before 9/11. You know, like year before 9/11. So like there wasn't no nation about these, right? You know, I had never been out of the United States except Tijuana, and they're a lot, right? Because I live on the border. But you know, never been overseas. You know, so. Leonard Robinson knew somebody who knew somebody, and for some reason, like he recommends me for this job, but basically they needed somebody that knew every facet of production, you know, commercial production. So I can see why he sent me, and then you know, personable, and you know, wanted to do it. You know what I mean? Because it was like, hey man, you want to go to India, Calcutta? And I was like, what? Okay, sure. And I needed a gig, right? You know what I mean? But I was like, oh, I don't have a passport, I don't have a visa. So I was giving them all that. So I was like, okay, I want to go, but I know I can't because I don't have a visa. We'll get you one, Jerry. I had all that within a week, right? So I was going, you know. So that was a trip, right? So I had to go. It was like whirlwind. Like I was going, but you can't turn it down, right? Because it's, you know, okay, I do animate, you know, so I do timing and all this. I mean, but I really wanted to go overseas because when it started becoming reality, and I'll get to the story, is I was a sheet timer. Basically, that's what I have on LinkedIn. That's what I try to kind of like to promote people because I wanted to get jobs as a sheet timer so I can get more hours in my union. But I want people to hire me as a sheet timer sometimes, you know what I mean? But I got to create the whole show, you know what I mean? But I'm a good sheet timer. That's technical, right? But you know, when I was timing sheets, when I first started learning, I was saying the secretary or the cute girls that the guys were hitting on because they do that in animation. And there's a lot of, you know, sexism in animation, put that out there for men and women. And so they would like, you know, teach the girls how to, teach young ladies how to slug. And I'd be working with them because I was actually there legitimately trying to track, because I was doing animating walk cycles. So they wanted me to work on a series. I really didn't want, but then this whole timing thing came up, got intrigued by it because I wanted to know how to affect the whole production, all the animation and production. And I want to know how they relate to our pre-production here in America that we send overseas. I want to know, like, is all this hectic work that we're doing really being followed overseas? Because I animate, and I'm just saying, are they really going to follow this stuff? And then I look at the I do look at the X sheets, and I'm seeing like walk cycles that they time out scenes and events that happen in scenes, and I'm familiar with pacing and timing at how many frames it takes somebody to get up and walk across the room. And if you've never animated that and you're going over a formula, you're not really going to get it right. So me as an animator, I could look at the sheets and tell, okay, it's some bullshit, this is not going to work, this person never animated. I don't really know what they're checking. It's a whole lot. I don't know if you look at marked up X sheets, but I animate, so it means something to me. So I'm thinking, like, what do these animators do? Because I'm really thinking about the King of the Hill stuff. I'm thinking, like, we did a lot of layouts and all this stuff, like, and X sheets and timing slugging boards. Like, I worked on that level of production with the slugging, timing out all the storyboards. You really can control what's happening. In X sheets, you can really control the pacing and every frame of film, and I like that. The camera motions, I love that, because the director, that's kind of like what they turn over to the sheet timers and stuff. They kind of relate to it, like I'm looking over it, but do they actually look over it? Because I'm looking at the stuff we sent over to seas on some production. I know, okay, this is impossible, won't work. I just know that as an animator. So I'm thinking, like, how are those animators dealing with this? Because the legalities with, the service studios is that they have to follow the direction that we give them. And then if they don't follow the directions that we give them, and like, say, sometimes we get retakes, we get like animation with Peggy, but it should have been Hank. You know what I'm saying? So you get Peggy talk. So that's a retake, right? That would happen a lot. I'm just telling you. So you don't want that happening. You know what I mean? So you're like, what happened?
Well, I could tell you from my experience, I had worked my first job was in South Korea, and I would visit one of the directors all the time, and he had to redraw their drawings a lot. So
now this is where I know you from. This is where I know you from, because I read about you in an article. Because I'm gonna get this is okay. I read about you in an article. I've worked with a lot of Korean studios and stuff, overseas. I mean, I send over stuff. I either do posing or sheet timing, etc. A lot of times, like a lot of stuff I know, like especially as sheets, the timing is not being done by somebody who actually animated. That was my issue. So my question was, what do they do when they get that? Because I know this can't work, and I know legally, long story short is, like, if there was a retake involved that I mentioned, they'll look at that sheet and say, okay, we actually made a mistake here, and we told you to do this with Peggy and Hank, whatever. So that's our mistake. So we have to pay for it. The American. But if we look at it and say, okay, like, if you didn't follow our direction, then they have to pay for it. And the overseas that's the way, that's the business. So them overseas studios, they don't have the huge pockets. They don't have it's a different kind of a hit. So the game is retakes, right? It's to not have you know what I mean, or to have like the smallest retake. So that's the production thing, America. If you're watching this. So I don't know, is that news for you from in-house? Because basically it's like, go ahead.
Well, like, because we worked on Fox shows, so Fox is very stringent, and so retakes would be half the time.
King of the Hill was a Fox show, right? What studio did you work at over there? What's the name of it? Was it Acon?
Animation.
Okay, I might have heard of that. Because I'll go through the list of the ones we worked at.
From my understanding, I chose very well, because I had there were some other people who I knew who were in animation, and they wasn't even getting paid regularly. So I chose very well, because I got paid regularly and didn't have a problem.
So that's okay. This is interesting, because in India, like, I wasn't. That's why I went overseas, right? I'm gonna tell you how to resolve all this. I went overseas. I love the overseas thing, right? Because I like. As an American, like, and I get that, like, a lot of productions are not sending overseas animation supervisors, because we can mitigate this whole thing. So I went over there with attitude, so I'm seeing all this cluster, whatnot, cluster. I'm glad you're here, because I'm just saying. So the money thing, so the money thing is.
But the directors that I was cool with, like, were actually Canadian, so. There will be the Korean directors, and then Western directors.
How about the Australian guy? I'm gonna ask you this. So do they have A, B, and C level crews? That's what I was getting at. They have like good crews and then the worst crew, A, B, and C level like talent crews.
I'm not sure because I wasn't fluent in Korean, and it was like a kind of a separate thing. So I would learn everything from the Canadian people that I communicated with. And so if we didn't have those conversations, then I didn't know. So I'm not sure. But
you're probably on the A level crew. Well, I know. Okay, I think they have A level, A, B, and C level crews. I mean, they might have. Well, everybody rates. Everybody rates department.
Yeah, I was in the 3D department since I'm a 3D modeler. So, and our department was anywhere from 7 to 12 people because, the Koreans, like, they would go through 4 years of college and then quit. There was one girl who literally lasted one day. And I'm like, do they not tell y'all how hard this is, like, in college?
Yeah, well, yeah. I always try to simulate the working atmosphere with some of my students. But now, anyway, back. So, that was our relationship. So when I went overseas, it wasn't Korea, but I really wanted to get my hands on an overseas crew dealing with the overseas production, American production that was set up, like, our Fox shows, etc. Because, I freelanced out to everybody. I didn't do the initial sheet timing myself. I supervised all the pre-production, and then went overseas. Mm-hmm. And then, I was the first one over there from America. So I was able to, assess the situation, looked at how they animated, top peg, blah, blah, blah. So I switched all that up, no big deal. And then I trained them, I had little class sessions, and I did this 2 weeks before the other co-director showed up, which white guy, white Mexican guy, ego issues, right? So, that kind of ruined it. But what I saw was effectively that I could kind of like not change the culture, but, you want to come in and set things up to work, efficiently with the, to receive the material based on how it was set up in our thought process back in America, right? And they were receptive to that because that's the kind of thing that they were wanting, kind of direction that they were wanting. So I was able to set that up, and I also, started like looking at as we started to break out the scene. So I directed every scene. But as I started to break out the scenes, I'm looking at the X sheets, right? Because I'm looking at the money situation, right? You know what I'm saying? Because I want to just pass out artwork and deal with artwork and have them, look at it and get a communication that they understand it or not, and then fill in the blanks, like you would do in America. Because it should be visual at that point. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But
that's why I didn't have really an issue working there for a year because it's all visual. I don't really have to be fluent.
Right. You know what I'm saying? It's visual. Exactly. Because I'm saying we're not translating it because, we deal in Philippines, or you're dealing in Calcutta, you're dealing in Korea, I mean, we used to have at Hanna-Barbera, they used to have people that would translate all the writing. I haven't seen that in years, so I don't know, I mean, I didn't translate anything. We wrote it in English and sent it over. You know what I mean?
Digital Animation did have a translation department.
So they had one there. Okay, well, they probably need to pay for it then. It probably might have to deal with who wanting to pay for that. But I know we had translation, but that's just business, right? So that's the relationship. That's the cost, right, of doing business. Mm-hmm. But, I just really understand that some of the, with the girlfriends of the guy, I knew that some of the people, you rate talent, even in America, I just knew some of the people probably sent over competent stuff and some of the direction, the sheet timing direction, because that's, as an animator, I'm wanting to know how many frames are you going to go where, what the character is going to be acting like, that you understand all these things. We have all these poses, we do all these animatics and stuff like that. We do that now. And we slug out these boards, we time all these sheets, we pay all these people to do this stuff. I want to make sure that it's worth it and that they're using it. Yeah. And if it's not being used, even with the way I want to deal with the artists that I pay now, if you're not going to follow my roughs, if I want to know, because generally I hire cleanup artists, I still want you to clean up my drawing. I don't want you to look at my drawing over here and do a new drawing over there. No, I don't want that. You know what I mean? Because if you're going to do that, why did I rough it out? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because maybe you can rough it out, just show you where to place it, and maybe that I can be more productive if I like what you do. I generally just want you to clean up my artwork, but I'm just saying it's a leeway because some of these guys are brilliant.
Yeah.
But I just want to know, so anyway, I get there and then all the scenes, unfortunately, they weren't working, weren't working for me, and I could see that even if the guys followed them. And so I called the executive producer. I said, well, I got to redo all this stuff, and we didn't bring the sheet timer over here. I said, what I got to do, I got to retime out all this stuff. So, that was a whole unplanned job, So what I decided to do was really, double down on that and start teaching sheet timing to these guys, So they would hang around because that was another job that had to do after directing, you know, damn. But, you know, I started teaching them how to time sheets, because when I teach something, it kind of reaffirms to me that I know how to do it. And it gets me into methodical, you know, nature of business, rather than, hey, this is Bart. This, you know, if I'm thinking about the character's personality that I like it, then it takes me away from being productive. I'm just, you know, how do we execute this at the highest level and make this character act the way it's supposed to act? So, you know, so bottom line is that I started to, you know, erase and retime the sheets and teach the guys how to sheet time. And they started to learn how to time sheets. But I got some pushback from my colleagues in America, because they weren't really feeling that, because, you know, I did see the probability if I had stayed over in India, I could have taught, you know, if we were going to freelance some work, some service work, most people are freelancing like storyboards. I saw the possibility of freelancing sheet time. You know what I mean? For people that still do that. Now they do a gang of I think, like, we do all these posed out animatics. Because I'm saying, why are we posing out all these? That's not story. I mean, learning continuity and storytelling is hard enough, but then they got to like animate and stuff. Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
I mean, that used to be a whole different department. You know, why are we doing it? You know, they're doing that because I think like the people don't know how to time out X sheets, and traditionally direct animation, you got to damn near do it in the storyboard now. They don't really pay for all that, you know, time, you know, so that people, so they don't have to explain themselves in technical terms what we want these foreign overseas animators to execute.
Oh yeah. So my next question, I saw on a post that you and Shirley Lee Ralph had the same manager. So what is the benefit of an animator having a manager, and is it still beneficial today? Because when you made that post, I was like, what?
Oh, really? Yeah, but you know, like our manager, well, yeah, that's not that long of a story. I mean, it kind of makes sense if you look at, like, go back to the thing about the preachers. Every preacher that I knew, mega preacher, had like a, you know, like a talent manager and a publicist, you know, and an entertainment attorney. You know, that's the ones that were really wrong. So I kind of looked at that and then said, well, what would a preacher need to do that? You want to handle your business. You know, you want like power behind you. I don't want to be begging people to look at my posts. You know, now I just started sponsoring posts, you know, but back then we didn't have online and all this stuff. I don't, you know, I want to be able to get into and to meet the owner of the studio. I want people to know me before I enter the room. I don't care about the general public knowing me. You know, that's Teen Summer wasn't about that. Teen Summer was about getting people to watch that video, you know what I mean? So I can get more, you know. So it's all business, it's all promotion, you know. But basically it's like, so the manager that I had was a Harriet Sternberg. I met her through Shirley Lee Ralph when she was at King Cragen. Her and Gary Borman and King Cragen were doing Hands Across America. That was their thing. Okay. Or We Are the World was their King Cragen. And Lionel Richie was her big, you know, star client. And Lionel Richie had, you know, took out Shrimp, Boogaloo Shrimp, the guy who played Scat Cat, actually did a live action reference. So that's how we're all related, just to kind of get that. You know, they took him out on tour with Lionel Richie for his Dancing in the Streets, that album. Okay. And Harry, you'll see her name in the album, but Harry's a very big time, big time's the worst, very powerful entertainment manager. And at that time, I was networking with people. I was a script analyst or a script reader for many years for a producer named Samuel Z. Arkoff, who produced I Was a Teenage Werewolf, Amityville Horror. You know, he's an independent producer, produced C-level films. He actually financed all his movies himself and distributed them himself. So, it was you know, Sam Arkoff, I was his, you know, I became one of his favorite readers. It started as an internship and he hired me. So I was with Sam for about 5 years with his whole family. Yeah, so he taught me the film business from somebody who's actually financing films. He wanted me actually to be an entertainment attorney. That's what he was trying to get me to do. You know, but I kind of wanted to be an animator, you know what I mean? But he actually, and I'll tell you about Sam, he actually produced and paid for Heavy Traffic, you know, and the first couple of independent Ralph Bakshi films. And he ended up getting hired for Ralph Bakshi when I needed a job. But basically, so Sam was influential. But so at that time, you got to understand, so it was in the 9,000 building on Sunset Boulevard. Luckman building, the owner of the building was built like the forum, you know what I'm saying? So these are the kind of people. So I would go to work. I would drive from Cal Arts every day to, be a script analyst and just be an assistant in the development department. So I was hanging around, is what I'm saying. I was like, all my free time was hanging around that building because I had access. And in that building was William Morris Agency, a 9,000 building at Sunset Boulevard, had a cross street was David Geffen Records. So you're in an area where it's like a lot of rich, powerful entertainment, attorney type establishment kind of people. The owner of the building Charles Luckman had a penthouse on the top of the building, and it was just amazing. And he let me come up there one time, and I realized like he was showing me all the buildings that he built from the top. The only time I went up there, old man. But you're talking about old money.
Yeah.
And so Sam would, have to lend me out to Canon Films or some of these other powerful producers. So I met a lot of producers, all of them, really name brand people. And I would read their scripts and give them feedback on their scripts to see, because, they're never going to read a script unless there's a really good reason for them too. And Sam had a list of questions. He always wanted to know, how could I get my money back from this movie? Who am I going to sell this movie to? And he found out I could sketch me up a poster because I want to see what the poster would look like when we sell. That's all he cared about. Who we going to, target market. That was it,
Yeah.
And he was finance film, and he made a lot of hit films. So I was there. So basically, I met Harriet, Ken Craig in that area of Sunset Boulevard is where you have all the players, David Geffen, Ken Craig and studio, all the Spagos, Nikki Blair's from Beverly Hills, that's what I'm talking about. It wasn't Hollywood, it was Beverly Hills, you know what I'm saying? So that was the kind of like, so I was networking. So I was just soaking up all these people, and Sam, my association with him, made me associated with a lot of people. I met Frank Sinatra's attorney, and I met Ken Craig, and I met a lot of celebrity, whatever, became fast friends, whatever. But hooked up with the, I'm telling all this because basically I just want to let you know these were like the reason I hooked up with this manager is because we're in Palm Springs with Cheryl Lee, and my girlfriend at the time was Angela Joseph. She's a politician now, but she was a crisis attorney. She's an older lady, older, black. So she was one who kind of like put me down into the game. She's, showed me this movie, Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Took me to the first panel, took me to Roscoe's for the first time. Her and Cheryl Lee was her client, so they were like, we were hanging, right? And Cheryl Lee is like, I don't know if you guys know, she's an incredible, actress, but she's definitely like one of the smartest, educating, like she's really a genius. And then she's like, taken, and she's got 10 jobs, and she's really like highly motivated, like highly motivated, like Jerry, we got to be doing like highly motivated, like that's not even a good word, like somebody that's making you do stuff and then clowning, and like you don't want to be trifling around there. What I was saying, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like I don't want to be, and I'm one of these people like I'll be going along with her, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, so we was in Palm Springs. She took me to John H. Johnson party or something. It was a week, very nice party. Met all the black hair care people, all the people that advertised in Ebony magazine. It was at his house. He had a real, great party. Met his daughter, everything. So everybody was very, very all rich black people, so networking was on tip. We was in, we was up there all weekend, and I established a relationship with Harriet. We're hanging out by the pool. I had known her, but this first time I really hung out with her. And, we just started making some plans. I had a lot of attention because I was a younger boyfriend, this girl. So I got a lot of attention from the lady who ran Essence, Susan. Yeah, so she was there. Yeah. Frida Payne was there. It was cool, and I was kicking it, by the pool. But I met a lot of those people, got a lot of attention. All the people from Chicago, Atlanta, the black hair care manufacturers, etc., insurance people. That was great. So it was kind of like maybe Harriet wanted to like, who is this or whatever, or she wanted to keep in touch with me. And then eventually, I was working at Disney at the time anyway, and she saw opportunity, and also I was coming from Cal Art. So, she's a smart woman. So she saw opportunity. And then when I did that video, when I started doing music video, that's really what sold her on it. Because
do you think in 2020 it's still beneficial for an animator to have a manager? Or
I think basically is you got to look at not only animation, you got to look at like yourself as being in the film business. We're making films or even like TV shows. When we pitch a show, because I know a lot of people look at development and all these kind of things, but when you pitch a project, when you're asking a studio or even anybody for even a low budget for a series, you're asking them for like millions of dollars, you know. We're not asking them for low, you know, I'm not asking you for $15,000 to make a low budget music video. You know,
Right.
back in the 80s, we're talking like $250,000 per episode on the low end just for the production. And you know, really like $650,000 to $850,000 for like a low budget TV show. And I think like when I left the King of the Hill, they were telling me that the budget for each episode was 2.5. You know,
wow.
That's in the mid-90s. You know, so these are not low per episode. You know, so you're thinking like even if they order 13, you know, that times 13. That's the kind of budget. On top of it, marketing. You know, so I'm just saying, it's like, don't be naive. I mean, we get into this thing where, you know, we want to one up each other, or you want to be a big man to talk about I'm selling this, selling that. No, it's like there's levels to that. What do you mean? So did you opt in the script, or did you give them all the rights for $10,000? You sold out, or did you do a you know, success package deal? You know, what's going on? Like my thing is like, if I can own the rights, if you know, I might do the development, you know, for a little bit of money. You know what I mean? If I can own it. And if I own the music, you know what I'm saying? There's deals, and that's the kind of thinking that that a manager will give you. The kind of thinking that you're you know, run-of-the-mill manager, or if you don't have a manager, like you might be excited because Netflix is calling you and talking to you. You know? Yeah. So
when you do work, you don't do work for hire. So what do you negotiate instead?
Rights to my characters and a fee.
Yeah. And so
you know,
that makes obviously you a more expensive hire.
Yeah, I would say that work for hire thing is like, you know, when I do work for hire, it's because I'm helping an artist out that don't know any better, or it's a really low budget gig, and I'm not going to do any original artwork, or you know, you know what I'm saying. I'm not designing them, just, you know. So I will not, you know, and this comes from George Clinton, P-Funk, whole nine. You know, I've seen really broke artists walking down the streets in Beverly Hills, because you know that Funkadelic, P-Funk, Parliament. I'm gonna tell you, like Overton Lloyd's like one of my best friends. We used to hang out all the time. We'd be broke as hell walking down the street. You know, we had a meeting at the Four Seasons hotels when MTV used to come in town, and that's in Beverly Hills. So parking there is real expensive, and everything in close walking distance is real expensive to park at. Right? You're talking about $20 straight to park in LA for a meeting. I don't know how long I'm gonna be there. So what we would do is, because you don't ever want to, you know, tell people you're broke or don't want to pay that, and you really don't know, like, is my agent going to cover this for me this time or not? Because, you know, if you take that chance, the time they don't cover it is when you don't have the money, right? So you don't want to have that embarrassment. You understand? So you got to think this thing through. So, you know, so we used to park way up on Sunset, walk a long way and try to get there early and be, you know what I mean? But and during that walk, we'd be walking and you see all these rich people, because it was like, you know, people like to wear rock and roll t-shirts and stuff. So P-Funk was a big deal, you know, like a nostalgia thing at the time. So Overton designed the Parliament Funkadelic logo, Sir Nose. So I saw that Parliament, you know, on a t-shirt, his logo, his artwork, Sir Nose. People walking down, you know, look like they come from a really ritzy store with this stuff on it, you know, licensed t-shirt. And I'm just saying, like, you know, and I know they spent $50 for that on up, you know. Yeah. He's over here broke, and I'm just saying, man, you know, like, why can't you guys get any of that money? They don't own the rights to that artwork, you know. He said, I can't even use my own artwork to promote myself. So I never wanted to be that guy. I mean, I did the comic strip because that hurt me. That hurt me because I'm saying, well, that's kind of like, well, that's janky. You know, I never want to be that guy, because I'm just saying, it's like, those are hit records, and people are going to be playing that. That's going to be a memory for people for years to come. You may like music and cartoon, like cartoons is a memory. Music, that hits you in the soul. You know, it's like, music is going to be in somebody's mind forever. So there's a lot of, you know, financial benefits to owning the rights to your music, as well as like if you have a iconic, you know, logo or comic artwork style like they did, you know, those album covers. I mean, that's iconic for people. That was their whole concept. You know, people are gonna be, you know, knocking that stuff off or doing that, or reminiscing about that for years. So you want to, like, when you get old and you're not that fresh, you're gonna want to sell, like, you're gonna want to license that artwork out, and you're gonna want to benefit from that, rather than Warner Brothers, which is doing it now, and they're making all the money. They're not sending it to any of the artists that did it, that are, you know, broke, struggling, etc. I mean, does the audience understand that? So if you're not doing work for hire, yeah, you turn it down maybe an immediate fee, you know. I mean, you got to look at like, well, I know for a fact there was a show called Tone Loc did a show, C. Bear and Jamal. So back in the day, so they approached me to design characters, and it was a work for hire fee that they wanted these things done for, and I believe it was going to be like maybe $350 per character, really. And I didn't want to do that, you know, with my crew because, you know, I probably wanted more money, and I wouldn't want to do it work for hire for that low of a fee. So, you know, and we weren't never gonna really, you know, at that time, Film Roman, they just wanted to work for hire artists, and their leverage, well, they have this other artist named Bruce Smith. They know other Black guys that are really good too in the business. And now I just like, this is what I do. I recommend them now, but they went to Bruce Smith, you know, eventually, and he did it for that cost. So that's almost like impossible to, you know, A, you know, you look at this, he's really good. And B, if you're giving it away, you're that good. I mean, I understand. That's like Dwayne King did that or something. You know what I mean? That would, like, he starts doing artwork that he get paid $100,000 for. He starts doing it $150. You know, all right. You know, kill for all right's gun. That makes it kind of hard to keep. You know,
yeah. So can we talk?
You'll see a lot of those kind of deals. You know, so yeah, I don't do work for hire. So basically, it's like I'll turn down a deal to not have to deal with that. Which means that's why probably a lot of you guys have never heard of me.
So what has been your experience with, you know, bias in the animation industry, whether it be through microaggressions, blocked from promotions and supervisory roles, whatever you feel comfortable talking about?
I've never experienced any bias in animation. I'm not Black. What are you talking about? That's some Black people's fault. No, I mean, I can say that. No. Well, let me put it to you like that. No. Well, let me just have bias in animation. Yeah, I mean, that stuff about Floyd, definitely, like, coming into the game. Like, I tell you, first of all, my experience with, like, the Black art, you know, and it's even, like, I don't want to call out, because some of these people that said that are friends, I might try to be doing business with them now, you know, but they've learned. But you know what I'm saying? Because I'm just saying, we all got to learn, right? But, you know, I did get a lot of comments. A lot of my friends would be like, Jerry, you got to stop doing that gang artwork. You know, people really tripped out on the Black character. If you have, even if you're drawing them Disney level quality, they weren't feeling the Black character. It was like, is that all you draw? And that was a problem. I don't know.
But they don't ask that to white artists who have a portfolio full of white people.
Exactly. Right. You know what I'm saying? So me saying I'm trolling them, it's like, dude, you know, like, it's really, and they had no hesitation with telling me that. In fact, some people told me that as like some really deep, good, you know, advice. I really want to be at heart. You're not getting these gigs because you're showing like all these Black characters in your portfolio. You got to stop doing this gang artwork. You got to be diversified, you know. Then, you know, I had a something, and I'm going to be very judicious with this because I think all this is going to be repaired with, you know, some really good people that you know, that I'm confident that our relationship over the years is pretty solid and we all understand each other. But there was a project that I did that I'm doing, getting the rights back, but it was like, didn't sell, you know, at the time because Black cartoons probably weren't really selling. I don't know why, because white people were like, we can't market a Black cartoon to mid-America, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Didn't understand it, but they were like, turn the characters into animals and make it like America Sings, which thematically, like, they did have gospel music in America Sings, but you know, that they had no hesitation when telling me to turn the characters into animals.
That's not the first time I've heard that. I saw somebody, I won't say their name, but they do have like an Instagram video about how they tried to shop a like some project to them, and they were like, oh, we already have a project with animals, so this is too similar. Like, so Black people are monkeys? What?
I mean, it's like, this is like the project I had is the project I did with at Film Roman with you know, Dan Haskett, you know. So we designed Dan Haskett and Guy Vasilovich and Ronald Souza West. So we had a design team because sometimes we'll mix styles to get you know, if people aren't owning rights, then I don't want it to look like anybody's style. You know what I'm saying? If it looks like my style, I want to own all the rights to it. That's just the way I feel. If it's gonna be superfluous, it's gonna be superfluous. You know? it's going to be a mixture. So anyway, obviously Dan style with the feature thing kind of was dominant. But I designed all the characters, So anyway, it was, but in the presentation was beautiful. But they even said that, so it was like, I want the character. The characters were like, I never seen my drawings look like, what I mean? Then Dan Haskell's artwork is bad, right? With Glenn, Guy Vessel, it was like brilliant, visualization, impressive, and they had no hesitation. So I can't say that it was like badly drawn or anything. It was a dope concept. I think it'll sell even to this day. But they had no hesitation to say, well, make them animals, and make it like America Sings because of it had gospel music. But my thing is that I didn't tell them that is that the story that I wrote and sold to them, and we kind of moved it through development, was a story based on my life and my family's life and my community. So, like theoretically, like I'm a commercial artist, so I'm not gonna say I'm beyond contempt. We all want to sell stuff. So sometimes, yeah, I mean, I'll entertain, you know what I mean? I'll entertain a lot of things, right? But I won't, integrity makes me stops me, right? But, I thought about it, but I started to think like, no, I can't do that because, I don't look at my people as animals, like I got my sisters in this. And that's the reason why I turned it down for any amount of money. I just said, I'm going to walk away. No, let's just drop it. I'll just do other things because I said, I don't see my people as animals. I said, now is not the time. And it really just came down to the fact that, baby, it wasn't like, didn't really see a lot of Black cartoons because the people financing them and distributing them, didn't understand the market and really didn't believe that white people would tune in to it enough or buy tickets to it to get their money. All racial.
I feel like
we're different than they feel like we're different than
yeah. I feel like I saw somewhere that this is not Baby's Kids, but have you watched the 5 Heartbeats documentary?
I haven't watched the documentary, but I'm gonna tell you, John Terrell, the guy who plays Flash in the movie The 5 Heartbeats, he was living next door to me, so I would drive him to the set every day. I hung out at that set when they were making the movie. I did a lot of drawing.
Well, Robert Townsend mentioned during the documentary that the reason the 5 Heartbeats didn't do well in the theater initially was because the trailer sucked. They put it together so wrong, and he had to fight for when what was the character Eddie, when he got saved, he had to fight for that because white people didn't understand it. He had to fight for the scene where Robert Duck and they didn't understand getting saved, so they was like, "Oh, this scene can go." And then,
and the movie I'm talking about is a religious thing. I don't want to put it out because I know your show gets a lot of views, but if you go into my Facebook, because I don't want to, I shouldn't be afraid of competition. It's definitely like the Clark Sisters movie. Because you got from a church person, so you know what I mean. Church guy cries music,
and right? Then he had to fight for the scene, where they were with his little sister, where they were creating a song with all the pieces.
That's the best scene in the movie. Are you serious?
He had to fight for that.
That's the best scene in the movie. Till the
end, he had to fight for that. Like they kept coming back. They came back like 4 or 5 times telling him to get rid of that movie or that scene.
Wow.
Because they don't get it.
That's terrible. That would have been a terrible. I've seen projects, like you saw my Arsenio project.
Yeah.
You've seen them, everybody that pilot, whatever, go into that. Now I'm happy that people are seeing that now, but I was really mad when I actually saw that because I had all kind of creative issues on that project because, I'm saying like we all storyboarded that and it's kind of like the story we wrote, but the tone of how they made it, because I got separated from it politically at the end of it. It was pay or play contract anyway. But I had a lot of fights with the creative people at Marvel and Paramount. And at a certain point, politically, they found a way to get me off the project, found a way to have Arsenio step aside and let the white folks take over.
Okay. And
it really ruined the project. And, they actually called me back because they were having hard times finishing it. But, so the tone of the project isn't like what I pitched to Bob Iger, what me and Arsenio pitched to Bob Iger and Ken Fleer today that we sold it to him on the set was pretty much a Jerry Brice. And it pretty much, hit the head on the nail with that story. There was no corny elements in it, at all. And it's still commercial, etc. It was more serious. But, they have to have us they have to have corny elements. I mean, I didn't mind the white character because that white character is actually a friend of mine. You know, like I have a friend that kind of reminded me. I just hated the fact that it was so forced. A lot of they make you do that. And then they make the white person. Well, I was like, why the white guy got to be the silliest? Like, that's disrespectful to the white people, you know. But that's the way they feel. You know, they have these tropes, these things that they want to do. So I didn't get that. I'm saying, like, this is my white friend, but he's not. You know, we have a. You know, I mean, he bothers me sometimes, like he's ultra black, whatever. So I'm saying that was kind of realistic. Now we're really good friend, great man. But that was kind of funny, you know. But it wasn't like I'm saying it wasn't him. It was more me. You know, but he would go there, you know what I'm saying? But that was kind of funny, but then they were friends, you know? And now, like, this guy's my best friend. So you want to show that, right? But that's complicated for white folks to, you know, when they're just thinking black and white and, you know, slapstick. Oh, we'll make the white guy silly. I'm trying to be uncomfortable, socially uncomfortable around black folks. So he's going to be cornerly black. I hate that, man. I mean, we had a show. What I'm saying is like the show that I sold that I actually wanted to direct, like had my hands into, or that Arsenio thing could have changed television. Would have been ultra dope. And that's the only reason why I kind of started to shy away from a lot of those deals. Because when I ended up doing that project, when No Joke was created No Joke, the day that project ended, you know, when they put me off it, the day that project ended, I went home. I talked to Overton, you know, because there was a whole lot of political. It was more like shoot, man. I was telling somebody because funny homeboy trying to be political. It was like Game of Thrones, castle politics. You know, people stabbing him. That's how it is. Because I was more like an executive there at Paramount at that point. You know, creative executive. Because it was, you know, and that's how that's how they were rolling with me. So I was making decisions. I had my crew, but I was getting the checks. I was, you know, they were hiring me to not be an artist, but produce and deliver, you know, project. Right. So, you know, so I was a production company that produced that whole presentation. So now we got the money, you know, we had to hire an animation studio to make it. I wanted ideas of, you know, what I wanted to do, but you know, Paramount had more power in that. And then politically, what they do to black folks is on TV. They have this thing called showrunner, because you gotta have somebody run the writing script. So the person that writes the scripts is called the showrunner, or who like I was supervising the artist, so showrunner supervises all the writers. That's the showrunner. That guy is usually the executive producer, one of the executive producers. Now in TV, that's the guy who has all the power on the show politically. But you can see that there was a whole lot of things with the handshakes. There's a whole lot of you know, it kind of came out like the Ice, you know, Ice Baby, Word to Your Mother. You know, when he said it kind of came out like Word to Your Mother kind of interpretation of black life, young black life, like I was young black life. He's trying to hang with me enough to interpret, to put those elements in the script without, you know, seemingly my help. And so he wrote the script and it came out kind of like a white guy writing, you know, dialogue for black people. But he was a big time TV, big time star now. But that's how.
Speaking of white guys, one of my favorite people, I don't know if you how much interaction you had with him, but you when you worked on Back to Neverland, you worked with possibly worked with Robin Williams. Did you get to meet him?
I like to talk about him? I like to talk about this whole thing, Back to Neverland, because I think that this is you know, we were talking about diversity in Hollywood. I think, you know, we should address Back to Neverland, right? Because Bruce Smith, you know, through Hyperion and Baby's Kids, all that, you know, we got a lot of black people, a lot of attention to these black projects. You got to tell you got the Proud Family. So I think like we should talk about Back to Neverland, because that's what set me and Bruce on the path of respectability with our peers in at Disney and the animation industry in general. Because the actual director of that piece was Jerry Reese. And he's a, you know, prominent director. He did all the live action, but he, you know, hired Bruce to supervise and lead the animation for that project. Was a prominent position. So he led up all directed the animation, and then Bruce hired me to lead the whole assistant animation cleanup department. So, you know, 1-2 punch. And we always kind of like looked at ourselves as Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis of the animation game, because, you know, I mean, you know, he makes me look good, I make him look good. You know, that's Little Mermaid, all this stuff. So we're doing it at a high level. That's how the animation game runs. Not that I couldn't animate, But definitely that's my function on there was quality control, and I had to hire, and basically it was hard. So Jerry Reese. So you're talking about two black guys. Bottom line, in the industry where there's a whole lot of up and coming, powerful or favorite son white guys that probably they would have preferred to have that prominent position on that film. So Jerry Reese. And I never talked to Jerry Reese about this, but if anybody, if you're talking about diversity in Hollywood and black people, whatever, I think you got to know, I would say Jerry Reese is somebody you all should interview, because I've never had this conversation with him, because it's coming out in bits and pieces. Because, I always felt like I got the job because of my skill. You know what I mean? That's now really, for years I felt like that. But I come to now recently, Jerry never discussed it, but he drops little things on me, but he kind of made it a point subliminally to me recently. It was like, Jerry, I had to really fight for you guys to keep you on this job, because me and Bruce never had that level of what do you call it, responsibility. I was the first one, it was great, you know what I'm saying? Because Bruce probably sold it to me like, Bryce, we're the first ones on this, we can choose the scenes, we control we hire everybody, hire the departments. It was great, and that was great. And Jerry loved work. I showed him the work I did with Glenn Keane. I showed him the all the cleanups I did with Georgette that I did with Glenn Keane from Oliver and Company coming down the staircase. I thought that's a show-stopping scene. I flipped that. So I got the job. Jerry didn't really know that much about me, but so it was easy. But now in retrospect, what he's telling me is that I had to fight to keep you guys on the gig because Disney didn't think you guys were qualified enough to have those positions. Wow. He's made that clear to me, and he said I had to fight to keep you guys on the job. They wanted other people on the job until they started to see the dailies come back. And when they started to see the dailies come back, they were really digging them, and then they started to want to hire. And this is true; they wanted to hire everybody because we were working at a little studio outside of Disney. It was a Disney project with us, Bob Rogers Studios. Then they wanted to hire us away from that studio to immediately work on Little Mermaid. I ended up waiting to the end of the project. But he said, so he said that's how it went down. So what I realized is that Jerry had a lot of power at that time as a director. He directed live action films, right, for the studio. And he started doing all the ride films or whatever. So at the time, I was just kind of like a young person going with the flow, and there's a lot of responsibility. Just wanted to do a good job, hired all my friends. You know what I mean? Everybody I wanted to on it because I roll. And but everybody qualified, didn't discriminate against anybody. Had a really great crew. And I think it's one of the best short films that Disney, yes, all the other elements, they feel like it's one of the best short films that Disney ever made. And that's my story. But what I realized is that you want to achieve diversity in Hollywood, wouldn't be having this conversation if we didn't realize that we're not empowering Hollywood. If you're kind of breaking it down to like a racial aspect, it's white supremacy, like white, I'm not trying to say, so white people are controlling. They know this, then they benefit from white supremacy. And then they don't really go out of their way to, break us off any responsibility. I'm saying that was the case. Floyd Norman would have got some of those same opportunities that Bernie Madison got because he obviously, deserved them, and has a mind to lead. Because that's all it is. But if you're not looking at Black people as a leader, you're not going to naturally have them over your house, offer them those, build those kind of relationships to offer them those positions, and that's what happens. So, yeah, so back to Neverland, I did work with Robin Williams because I keyed every one of his scenes, as far as like the character itself, I worked in all those. It was a model change. It was hellacious. So I touched every one of those drawings because I was nice. I touched every one of those drawings in a movie of Robin Williams and Captain Hook. Led the whole department. Now, as far as Robin Williams himself, you saw the picture of us standing with Robin. You know what I mean? Like the one that's online. So we did get to show up. I got to show up with Robin on a couple times at the Raleigh Studios when they were shooting the live action. I tried to be an extra at the beginning, and Walter Cronkite and Robin Williams and everybody. So as far as that, yeah, I did get to work. I was in their midst a couple. That's what people want to know. Did I personally get to meet him? Yeah, you saw him in the picture. We got to talk to him. Walter Cronkite, definitely nice man. May rest in peace. that wasn't a highlight. I mean, it was a highlight if you know, hey, yeah, they're great people, you know, and I really like the attention that I'm glad that Rebecca took those pictures. I wish I would have taken more pictures because now the older I get, I see the value in them. But I'm glad that they took all those pictures, a wide shot, so that you can see all of us together. Franz Vischer. I mean, the way they crop those pictures, they crop me out of them. Sometimes they crop Franz Vischer out of them. But I like everybody in the picture. All those people are brilliant, and yeah, we got to work with those guys.
Cool.
But I think the point for this show is like, you know, diversity. You got to understand.
Yeah.
Right now, there's powerful white people, and I'm not saying white people. I don't mean that disrespectfully white people, because I am saying black people too. You know what I'm saying? So equal. This is just a distinction.
Yeah.
But there are more powerful white people, white men, in fact, because that's an issue too. The women thing is another trip that I want to, you know, resolve. But there's powerful white people in power in our animation at every level of animation. Supervisors, you know, because your supervisor got to like recommend you for, you know, more responsibility or raise, etc. So, you know, they're running things now, and they hang out with each other after work. And that's the difference. Because I was hanging out with Bruce and other brothers, and none of us had the power. We were doing our thing. We were power. You know, we're looking up to Bruce because he was more powerful, you know, higher up than all of us. So, you know, but that's what we're looking at. But basically, you know, I wasn't hanging out with the directors of the film, and I, you know, like who directed like Ron Clinton, John Musker. It's like I have more interaction with John Musker now than I ever had with them when I was at Disney, you know. I mean, I'm like, I like it, you know, and I told Laura Lee, you know, I'm really realizing that now. I didn't break it down to a black white issue. We recently had a 30-year reunion, but and I told her I wish I would have hung out with more people now because I'm like following you guys and I know you were brilliant artists like this. And she said we were busy, but really what it comes down to is like I was hired, you know. After work, all the black people hung out together, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know, the white people, what I realized that they hang, and it's not like we disliked each other or we couldn't hang out with each other. It's just how it naturally kind of evolved. I was a young dude and Bruce was young, and we was kind of running at parties together after work. The white guys, they were hanging with each other. They were more or less married at younger ages and stuff, but they were, you know, they would relate to each other after work and for whatever reasons. But, you know, and I saw that at all our jobs. So it's like, you know, we really didn't have those kind of like off work relationships as maintained as in continuity as some of the white guys did that maybe got elevated. So what we need to do is we really need to mitigate that and understand that that's part of the game. We need the white people that are empowered we need to build relationships together outside of work so that, you know, we're available to them in their mind's eye to be in those positions of leadership to get that opportunity. Because, you know, Parker Simmons, who has a show on the air now called Mau Mau and it's on Cartoon Network, whatever. He was a student of mine, you know, from San Diego, white guy, whatever. I taught him everything he knows, right? The animation. But I looked at his career and he's telling me, you know, you know, I don't know if he won, but he was nominated for Emmy, and he's got a series that he created on the air himself. And I see that he gets along good with the owner of the studios and a lot of the prominent people at that studio. He was getting along well with them. And what I realized is that, you know, he told me is that, you know, his elevation or meteoric elevation in these past 10 years in the industry came from guys that were supervising him or above him, just offering him an opportunity.
Right.
Do it, and then he accepted it and he rose to the occasion like I know he would. And, you know, God bless him. But that's kind of profound. I'm glad he put it out there because you got to read between the lines, you know what I'm saying? Because I offered him opportunity, you know, I gave him a professional gig before I went to college because I was wanting to promote him, you know. Like I did the Jessica Simpson thing, the ABC special. You didn't mention that. You know what I'm saying? But I did that, you know, for ABC, an Easter special, you know, national TV broadcast, you know, special, had all kind of money. I did all that animation, directed and wrote a lot of the animation, but I did that in San Diego with my students because the people that hired me, I had built up a great reputation with them as a reliable animator, like what I did for them. And they just wanted me to do the animation. I was full-time teaching. And I just said, well, you know, I'm going to probably have to hire some help, some assistance. And, you know, they said, Jerry, we don't care what you do. Just make sure that all the work looks like you did it. And I'm saying, cool, man, because like all these guys, I had a bunch of students, I had hundreds of students and I trained them all to work like me. You know, like that's what you would do, right? You know, now they go to Hollywood and they say, okay, well, Brian's probably like, it's not like this. He probably went a little overboard, but you know, but I tell him, man, you know, but you're prepared. You know what I mean? I did do it real the hard way, but I'm saying now you laughing at like that because now you're prepared. They were prepared to do storyboards the hardest way possible, right? You know, but now they get it to them. It's easy. So, man, I said I did you a favor, man. You know what I'm saying? Now, life is easy for you. But
can we go back to talking about, you know, the to COGIC? So you directed the West Angeles COGIC Little Saints Sing a Praise of Peace video. Yeah,
I did. The Little Saints and Praise was a record for Sparrow Records. Sing a Praise of Peace was the single that Patrick Henderson produced, and we did that I did the music video again. I produced and directed the music video, had animation. Phil Young did most of the animation with me. And Phil Young was an animator at Disney, you know, one of their main animators. So yeah, I did that for Charles Blake. Yeah, the West Angeles Church of God in Christ. But basically the record label, Sparrow Records, hired, you know, commissioned my company to do that. And I immediately wanted to do that because I wanted to put like bigger, you know, vision into gospel music videos at that time. And Vicky Mack was the A&R director at Sparrow Records, you know, at the time. They were still in LA, and she went on, if you don't know gospel music, Vicky Mack went on right after that to establish Gospel Centric Records. And they're the ones that had, you know, Kurt Franklin, Mary, Trinity, a bunch of hit records. Her and her husband, they did that independently in LA when Sparrow Records moved down to Nashville right after our hit record. But yeah, I directed that. It was animation. Bobby Jones loved it and he pumped it. He played it for many years on his gospel, because it was only video that had animation like that, and it was little kids and it was cute. See, and one thing is like you know, Billy Ray Hearn. So these gospel labels, you know, they're all kind of like, you know, there's white gospel, black gospel, you know, gospel music, you know, and you know, white gospel's great, you know, but you know, black gospel, you know what I'm saying, Church of God in Christ. But the record label, Word Sparrow, they're run by white folks, right? So they moved to Nashville. So he was kind of like skeptical, you know, he was skeptical. So he was like country, you know, he was a real record, you know, real kind of country gospel record man. Billy Ray Hearn, you know, both Billy Ray Hearn and Billy Ray Hearn Jr. are dead now, but Billy Ray Jr. was up and coming younger guy at that time, and Billy Ray was an old guy, kind of Colonel Tom Parker. I really liked him, you know, I really liked that vibe. Because he kept it real with me, you know, he was real Southern. He saw the footage. He was like, Jerry, I don't know, man, we gonna need more than just little kids in these robes. You know, you think that's enough? And I said, Billy, don't worry. He said, no, we don't need nothing else, Billy. I know this, you know, I got this, man. It's gonna be I know the audience, man. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, so I would talk to him like that, and then I could go to him. He's like, okay, man. So we did it. And then, you know, the animation, they liked it, right? They loved, you know, it's like, oh, this is pretty. They saw the vision. Because their album cover was a, you know, drawing crayon. So I just took their album cover and brought it to life a little bit more and exploited, you know, the fact that, you know, we spent a little bit of money and had the interaction with the animation on there. And I thought it was really cute. And I'm just thinking about my mother. That's why I did it, because my mother really didn't like, she's a real Christian lady. She really, you know, didn't like some of the other stuff I was doing. So I was thinking about all, you know, because, you know, like Church of God in Christ, like a lot of people won't look at non-secular stuff, right? They think it's devil or worldly, you know what I mean? So I know, you know, so I know that. So it's like, on my mind, it's like, you know, I'm still thinking I want to entertain my family. So if they didn't look at the Good Girls or Paula or some of the rap videos I did, so they're going to look at this one. Because I put a lot into that one. And Bobby Jones saw it. They loved it. He really loved it because he saw that I was trying to go for higher production values, you know, for him. And he appreciated that. And he said, man, and he talked to me on the phone. I was excited to talk to Dr. Bobby. And he played it for years, and really I knew I had made it when my cousin Pat, you know, called me and said, Jerry, I didn't know you did this video. I love you. And she went off, and she's real Christian. I said, oh man, I made it now. You know, that's my favorite video. And the guy who wrote it was Patrick Henderson. You know, he's like my best friend, but he wrote Minute by Minute by the Doobie Brothers, if you know that song. Minute by Minute. Yeah. See his name on the record. You know, he's like, oh, Jeremy Ring. I said, your name's on the record, man. You get rid of it. But he's like, you know, well, you know, I wrote some of those cuts myself. But Minute by Minute is a big hit. But I tell you, know, like
I'm a big Michael McDonald fan.
Okay, well, okay, well, Patrick Henderson, him and Michael are like best friends, so you'll see his name. But, Pat, that's why the records, you see some of the gospel music videos I did, I work with Patrick because, he wrote all those stuff, man.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant musician, man. I'm excited about him. But, we sold more record. I mean, that record was a hit record. I can guarantee you that record didn't cost as much to produce as, minute by minute. Even though some years, but I mean, they were using live musicians. I'm just saying, you make money off records when you don't spend a whole lot of money making them. So, you know what I mean? So a gold record is 500,000 copies, right? So if my expenses for that gold record are lower than maybe yours, if it's $1 million lower, then look, I'm looking at the profit, man. So I tell Patrick, and he knows it to this day, dude. We made more money selling that little kid's record than he did on the. And I'm not casting Spurs, Michael, but brilliant, right? Because they made a lot of money on minute by minute, but nah, I'm happy about what we did. You know what I mean?
So something
I don't want to brag, but I'm proud of that, man. We made we made money, and that's a hit record. Like I should have a gold platinum plaque up on my house.
True.
Black people, and that gives me credit with black people, because black people, thank you for watching that video. Seriously, because I'm here for you. You don't know me, but I'm here for you. You will know me. You know what I mean? Go ahead. I can tell you, I got copyrights on a project called Crenshaw Boulevard that date back to 1990. That I can tell you that I wrote with somebody, Ken Bass. Optioned by Film Room, and designed it with Dan Hass. I mean, it is exactly that. And then the problem here is that, it could have been a hit, and I came with all the artists I'm talking, Kurt Franklin before they were famous. So, really got to think about it like this. The sister that, I know the sister that wrote and was pitching and trying to hustle and sell the Clark Sisters movie for at least 15
That took like 10, 15 years, yeah.
No, it actually took 20. It took 20. So,
oh, yeah.
They said 56, it took her 20, right? You know what I'm saying? But then you got to think about it like this. So 20 years ago, so I started my project like 89, 90 when we started commercially pitching it. Same kind of thing. But bottom line is what I realized when I saw how big of a hit that Clark Sisters movie was, and I talked to the lady and saw how many years it took her to sell it. What I really realized, and I'm still have a personal relationship with the people that option my projects, and they said I have a lot of respect for them. But what I realize is that they don't understand our audience, period. So if I'm pitching a project to people that don't understand our audience, make them animals, etc. I'm trying to explain to you this guy Kurt Franklin over here, you don't know him now, but he's going to be a multi-platinum artist in 1 or 2 years after you turn this down. And these girls, Mary.
That was a dumb decision.
Yeah, and then this lady here next to me. You look at the Little Saints and Praise, the little girl, the narrative part. That's Vicky Max's daughter. The music. She produces albums now, but that's her daughter. So I'm talking about take yourself back before Kirk Franklin and Mary. I'm talking about in 1990, the lady who actually hired all those or discovered all them and had the record label. She was working with me on that Little Saints and Praise album. She's still a friend of mine. And I brought all those, I packaged that project you're talking about with all these artists, gospel artists, because I saw the opportunity, because Disney was making, European musicals. So yeah, I mean, I want to, and the story I wrote is, I don't understand why people don't understand. The story I wrote had to deal with Crenshaw Boulevard and splitting up of a community when they build a subway or elevated subway down the middle of Crenshaw Boulevard. And I wrote this story in 1989 based on something that happened here in San Diego to the Black community when they built the 15 freeway through the old Black community. I saw it split up the community. So it's about gentrification and that kind of thing. But I wrote this story in 1990 before any of this was an issue. And what I'm saying is, you look what's happening. You live in LA. What's happening down on Crenshaw Boulevard now, directly down Crenshaw. My uncle, like Charles Blake Churchill, I call him my uncle, but West Kansas is on Crenshaw Boulevard, so I've been on Crenshaw. A lot of the videos I shot with there, so I've in 1990. So yeah, I know LA. But basically it's I look at what's happening. What are they doing down Crenshaw Boulevard right now? They're building a subway down Crenshaw and it's splitting the community, and gentrification is an issue. So these are topics that so if you're looking at somebody that's prescient, I don't like to blow my own horn, but I mean, I look at people like the idea, like gospel musical. Now they kind of, getting in on, it's interesting that I'm always done it. I can tell you over the years, the kind of BS stuff I've heard about the project from people selling, Samuel Jackson's doing this, or, MTV did the Cuba Gooding, whatever. I mean, it's like the movie that I'm talking about, they don't know about because it's not that, I'm actually in the church. I knew Patterson. I'm actually in the church. So I can tell you, I can write things in that, I can flip that script, more than one way. I can make it if I'm talking about the Church of God in Christ, some people look at it as like the mafia, structure. I can do a story like that. I'm not, I could, but I'm not, because, it's organized. But see, white people don't think that there's organization with Black people. That's one thing I did realize. And Black people don't think it's organization. Some of the Black people that didn't grow up like me, I got to deal with them, right? I got to deal with the fact that they don't that they have low self-esteem, and they don't understand that we some organized people out here and high achievers. And I don't look down at myself because I don't know anybody that look down, like all these older Black men around me, like my father, have their own businesses and hire Black people. Right. My dad took our union. If you're talking about the animation union team, my dad sued the team, the construction union here in San Diego with my grandfather in the mid '60s for discrimination. Because American unions generally, like the animation, you don't know if you're in the animation union, but one thing they got to kind of deal with is that they kind of BS in the Black people. Because one thing I do understand about unions, especially Teamsters, is that they're the pillars that uphold racism in the workplace. They're not the people to look at to deconstruct it. You understand that, people? I mean, I don't know if you guys listen to me. So if you're talking about, if you're seeking, and if you are in the animation union and listening to this, you got to understand this, is that if you look at the year, if you follow the union Facebook posts, because I don't really go on their site, but I follow that. Every time they talked about racism or any kind of bias issue in the union, they clown it or they try to act like it doesn't exist. The union is always putting up pictures like the union t-shirt day, or even like what I realized from my friends that are in the unions that have productions. Some of these guys I were my assistants, or I got them in the business. But I look at he's creating and they're leading shows, and I kind of look at their crews, and there's like maybe one Black person in it, right? And I'm not saying I'm a Black person. I got them in the industry, and they're 100% comfortable with maintaining these crews where they're showing me Christmas parties or rap party photos or Union Day photos, and it's always the same thing. It's like I was that one Black guy, back in the day. Now I'm only seeing one Black guy, so there's something about that they're very comfortable with that. They don't look at it like I got no Black people on this because they're not Black. I don't know why, but they're comfortable with that. So yeah, I'm not with that. So the union, they show all that stuff and they don't recognize it. And every time they recognize, I think the union girl, she would kind of give a flippant response. Well, why don't you show up and do it? Or we need a committee on that. It's always some bullshit like that. So, I'm if I come back in the union and accept a union job as a teacher or whatever, when you step away or freelance, whatever, I would have to be paying a lot of money in union, fees to have that gig. So for me, it's like, if that's the case, then I'm going to need representation. I don't believe in paying taxes without representation. If I sue the union or go after any company, it's never personal. It's always business. Right now, the union is doing nothing to represent the Black people in animation in their animation field outside of the committee or some bullshit that's not effective. And I think like right now, they're collecting union dues from Black people and they're not representing their our issues.
Right.
On the work.
So so as a veteran in the animation industry, what have you decided is your purpose in regard to Blackness and Black professionals in animation?
To create when things got political, I'm gonna tell you guys something about the baby's kids. Or not baby's kids, I'm gonna tell you something about me. And let me see. Like I got an agent, Natural Talent, Donna Felton and Kelly Calder are my agents. They're called Natural Talent Agency. They represent a lot of your prominent animation creators and writers, Swampy Marsh and producers, and I'm, I'm their favorite client. You know what I mean? So I get good representation. So, and I've always had good backup in that way because I try to handle my business in that way. And, you know, I've had a lot of deals, development deals, etc. Did a lot of things. And me and Bruce made a pact, like, you know, I wanted to have a Black animation studio or Black power presence in animation so that, you know, we wouldn't have to be begging, you know, white folks to give us leadership positions or what I understood is that, you know, like my family had you know, a lot of stable income. And, you know, so I had a lot of benefits with that, with education and just worldview and business in general. So I can handle myself with, you know, cause, you know, like my father had me and my brother, we would do pitches for the city and big development projects from an early age. So I understand business, politics, whole nine from early age. And I understand that a lot of like my colleagues that are in this business probably got there because of talent. Mm-hmm. Maybe they didn't, you know, you can go to college, they took union class, you know, so it's all, however we get there, it's all legit. But what I do see is that some of the guys are naive or maybe they're not looking at it like business, or they feel afraid, or they just, you know, I don't know what it is, you know, I'm just not like that. It's like my dad, you know, we look at like, I believe in working from the ground, the mailroom on up to learn the business, but I also believe in doing for self. I like to work for myself if you have a legitimate shot at doing that, like legitimately for yourself. Because, you know, like what my father did here in San Diego, you know, I keep mentioning he's a developer. He started to develop, you know, housing projects, and he was able to hire a lot of Black people here in San Diego and train them. Not only Black people, but Mexican. We hired all kind of Black, Mexican, age, whoever, you know, white, whatever. And a lot of these guys were illegal. Some, you know, we pay them regularly and get them to be legal. And a lot of those guys are citizens now, you know, and with families here in America, and they're still friends. My dad is an old man. He's 85 and, you know, healthy old man. But, you know, now, you know, if things are different, I'm kind of happy that he did that, because all these guys come around now that, you know, you want that, you know, they have love. And I'm here in San Diego because of the reputation that my father has. If you start feeding people's family and providing them opportunities to, you know, feed their family, buy housing, get their kids education, and have a steady job and help build up our community, you know, and because somebody provides them with that, our only hope was that they would do that his only hope was that they would do that for somebody else, like a pyramid kind of scheme. And that's how you build a future. And that actually happened for, you know, with my father's business here. So that's how I approach business, you know, or life in general. So when I looked at that, you know, me and Bruce were at Disney Studios, no less, you know, and I'm dealing with some of the upper management in Disney. I'm working with some of the most brilliant animators, some of the most famous prominent animators at the most prominent animation studio. I'm getting a lot of opportunities. That stuff I was telling you about, you know, Harriet Sternberg or King Curry. I mean, I understand who these people are. They're powerful people. They're rich. They deal with famous people. They call shots. You know, I was trying to align myself with like what people call the Illuminati now, you know, for better or less term, you know, but I wanted to align myself I didn't want to align myself with the dudes. You know, I had friends in the business, but I wanted to align myself with the guys calling shots, you know, Peter Snyder. The people calling shots are like, who, you know, the producers of the world. So yeah, and I wanted to be that. You know, and I wanted to be everything I wanted to do in my field, what my father did in his field, provide jobs and opportunity for people. Because, you know, like I tell the brothers, man, you know, I just believe this is hard. If we have to depend on our competition, or, you know, right now it's white people are in control, and they're sometimes viewed as like keeping us down. So they're sometimes our oppressors. So if we have to, and they know that, you know what I'm saying? They know that, right? So some of them do it purposely. A lot of them benefit from it and do nothing about it, which is even worse, but that's the way it is. But, you know, we have to deal with it. We have to manage that. I mean, we have to drive to work and to studios that are not in the Black part of town and deal with all of the issues of society. And in the 80s LA, it was already racist, right? You know, Rodney King, all that happened. You know what I'm saying? You know, think about it. Like, you were in Burbank, there was no Black people out there. You know, like a lot of you guys in Toluca Lake, Burbank, North Hollywood and stuff, just, you know, happily go lucky and whatnot at all hours of the night, right? Riverside Drive, you know, you get arrested like a mug, you know what I'm saying? You were out of place, seriously. I don't know, look, you guys don't remember LA. Well, you weren't in LA, but look at, you know, NWA, you know, listen to some of the albums, man. Just telling you, me and Bruce, it's like, I don't talk to Bruce that anymore, but I'm just saying, I was like, I'm not from LA, so I lived, you know, in Toluca Lake and Barham, you know, I lived with rich white folks. And Roscoe Lee, you know, Roscoe Brown was a friend, you know, come over all the time. And I liked him, you know, he was a fun old man. But, you know, had the pool, had everybody, you know, it was great, you know, so I got to mingle. I got to learn a lot about the record business, you know, just based on where I live. But it was like a lot of people. But I mean, there were some drug dealers lived up there, but I would drive to work, you know, on Forest Line Drive, whatever. But it was very racist. You know? So society was racist for you. So you to get to work and leave late at night, you got to deal with that. You know, so that was the issue with how I appeared to people late at night in the white part of town. White folks, you know, they not even going to relate to that. You know, maybe they do now. They see North Pole, but that was a thought for all of us. You know, not just me, for all of us. Maybe I was just I wouldn't tell the cops to fuck off or whatever. You know what I mean? I would kind of exacerbate the problem. Sometimes you catch me on the wrong day. It's like, you know, whatever. Which wasn't good. But, you know, when you're young, I'm older now, you know, so I'm like, I don't want to end up, I got a kid, you know, I don't want to end up, and he's 20, I worry about him. I don't want to end up, like, your life got to be more than arguing with the cop on the side of the road over why you stopped me. You understand? Like, I felt justified. You know what I mean? But, you know, you don't want to go there so time, man, you know.
So when you think about all of the resources that, you know, young Black artists have with, you know, YouTube and just low cost to free access to programs, what kind of encouragement do you want to give to Black animators or animation professionals to create your own stuff and take power of your story?
I think they should do that, because now, like, the opportunity is vast, because with YouTube, you know, I'm meeting a lot of animators on YouTube that you know, definitely it's a different generation, but, you know, like there's this one girl named Jaden, and she contacted me on she has a channel called Jaden's Animation, and she reached out on me to me on LinkedIn, and you know, was asking me about a walk cycle I posted about King Hill, so I was just talking to her in my DMs, whatever. And I didn't know who she was, but I know it was a long conversation. But as who is this? So I started to look at her YouTube thing, and I started to see, okay, she gets 9 million, you know, views on her post on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, and they're kind of like, you know, like I talk to everybody, you know, especially if you hit me up and I decide to exchange. I was having a nice conversation with this young lady, and I'm thinking, okay, like, this is a student. I feel good. She's asking me about this Hank Hill walk cycle. I feel good about that, right? I'll talk to you for hours. See, I'll talk to you for hours. So I was explaining how I did it. I loved it, right? But then I didn't really know this person, but as the conversation, you know, kind of gets more personal, you start to go into a different page. So I start to Google who she is, just to kind of find it. Like, I was like, damn, you're famous. And I'm not even told her that. You know what I'm saying? And at that point, you know, okay, I don't know if I should, because she was being very, because just like a young lady, I'm just very cool. You know what I'm saying? Nice. I look like you, you know, I'm just answering their questions. But now it's a 9 million views. That kind of like puts me in, like, I'm thinking, like, now I'm thinking. So now my conversation is different. Like, damn, well, I told you kind of, I don't know, no, Jerry. You're not even calling me Mr. Brice. No, I'm just, you know, I'm just normal. You know, so she's going humble, you know. But I'm just like, then I'm looking at her how many followers. I'm like 6 million. It's like, oh my God. And I started looking at her stuff and I'm like, whoa, she's famous. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, she said, well, you know, if you keep going on your channel, if you get to 1,000, I'll add you to my network. And I'm like, really? Wow. You know, that's a big deal. I didn't know who this girl was, you know. I'm glad I talked to her, seriously, man. That's, you know, people, I will talk to anybody. If you hit me up, like, not crazy, whatever, which you never know what that. Look at my work on LinkedIn, you know, please. You know what I'm saying? I look at the views, man. But I loved it, you know. Ask me questions. I loved it, and then okay, if I talk too much, just let me know. But I loved it. She was with it, right? And are you familiar with her, Jaden?
I'm gonna look her up.
Jaden's Jaide, Jaden's Animation.
Okay.
Seriously. So, and I used to regularly converse with the the Black guys from New Orleans. The two used to be two twins. I think it's just one of them, but Broken Equipment Productions. Broken Equipment.
So I've lived in New Orleans for 12 years. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, they did a lot of they do a lot of Dipset or Birdman, you know, they did a lot of like pop culture from, like, if you're like 18 or they're in their mid-20s now, but following them for years, but they were like, Katrina had just happened, right? So it was like that many years ago. So they're like teenagers. And they had to leave New Orleans and go to Atlanta with their mothers, and they just had broken equipment, broke down computer, but they learned Flash. Actually, no, they learned an anime. I think it's Manga Studio. They learned an animation program, and it had a little, no, it was like janky, but it was soul slamming. Black people got that soul. We have that improvisational manner of us, where we have that patois. You know what I mean? We can improvise something like, you understand? We improvise a lot of stuff. We don't have, hip hop was for some fools that probably didn't have access to instruments, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we do that kind of thing and make it a hit. So that's what they did. Like, you want to give some brothers some broken equipment, and they're not animators, that they didn't. But I started really following them because they started getting funny stuff, millions and millions and millions and millions of hits all on YouTube when it was hard, Yeah. And I still follow them, and they did that for years. I was like, man, they asked me, can you teach us how to animate better? I said, well, I could, but I'm not, because I teach you guys. I'm just saying, because they were like, well, Mr. Brice, they were going
so
like
you
that.
still wanted that rawness.
Yeah, if I teach them how to animate, the guys they got slicker, but yeah, you want that rawness. So I start teaching you how to animate, then you're gonna start thinking that you're wrong. Because really, and it was like I teach anybody, because over the years the stuff got like it's slicker, But I think that some things have to be organic, like that. You don't want to. Everything doesn't have to be slick, everything doesn't have to be Disney. And then really, what it was that I was more intrigued with them. They were just, I know people get excited to meet me because I'm an older guy, or they get skeptical, but then they start looking at the credits and like the stuff you read off. And, I took jobs so that I would get, an introduction like that. I mean, me and Bruce did that. We took jobs based on, how it would sound in our credit roll, like you associate your names. I don't know how long I worked on a lot of those jobs. I worked on them long enough to get the credit,
Yeah.
Pretty much what and when I was at Disney, that job was about getting the skill. But a lot of the other jobs, especially TV, because I was on a generation, I'm like a feature film animator, and that's pretty much what I look at myself as. When I do stuff for TV or music video, I'm entertaining. It's not about quality. Well, quality entertainment, but it's more about entertainment than it is about quality animation. And I think, well, you've heard this before. You look at, you got to understand, it's like you've probably heard a lot about Bruce Smith, and we're of that generation. Like our skills were targeted towards feature film. Had you talked to us back in the day, like we probably didn't really respect our job at Filmation, other than outside the fact that we got paid for it. And you hanging with animators, but it really wasn't what we were wanting to do. We looked at ourselves, in that, Glenn Keane kind of zone.
Yeah,
really felt that too.
So if anybody wants to get in contact with you, can you put all the ways to get in contact with you and to see your stuff?
Yeah, well, you can contact me on Instagram at Jerry No Joke. I tried to put the @ sign here, but you were going to get the whole name. So it's at Jerry No Joke on Instagram, and Twitter is Jerry Brice 5.
I think Twitter. Jerry Lee Brice.
Jerry Brice 5, like that. Jerry Brice 5, whatever. I'm on Twitter. You see a picture of me and Shirley. It's Jerry Brice 5. I guess there's some other Jerry Brices there. I probably just should have did Jerry No Joke. I tried to change that, but it's
Jerry Brice 5 on Twitter.
Yes, Jerry Brice 5 on Twitter. You can add me there. You'll see a black and white picture of me and Shirley Ralph. But add me there. I just started getting on Twitter because that was the last one because the president's on there. So I'm thinking a lot of federal politics, and I don't want to deal with the feds. But anyway, and then on Snap. Wait, on Snapchat. I'm on Snapchat. I'm on Snapchat.
I'm not even on Snapchat. Well, I am, but I don't have it downloaded.
Okay, I'm gonna explain it because I saw it when I downloaded. It said for 13-year-olds and stuff. Okay, so I downloaded. I'm really liking the new technology. I always like ancillary.
Are you on TikTok?
I'm on TikTok. I was only on there because you have to open up an account to look at their virtual reality lenses and stuff like that. All that. I wanted to make one of those. I was working with I was trying to get the good girls back on the road, so I wanted a Snap filter because I wanted people to download that. I wanted to get their stats, but I also wanted them when they're at the concert to be able to hold their phone up and have a virtual reality version of Your Sweetness dancing on stage with the good girls through their phone while they're, when they sing that number, so that they would have a reason to look at their phone like that at a concert. They're going to take a phone, but also take a picture of that, load it up, and then we got this, But I wanted to do a filter like that to collect stats
Nice.
on. I mean, do it for Chubby, but to collect stats on people that come to the concerts, but also to direct them to a website. This whole thing. But Snapchat does awesome work with that. So people, yeah, I'm on Snapchat. I'm on TikTok. I'll probably be on like Jerry Brice on TikTok or Jerry No Joke. Put Jerry Lee Brice Animator in Google, and all this stuff will come up. I'm on Wix. I have my portfolio, because I'm trying to go free with that right now. But Wix portfolio, but I'll change that, whatever. The more money.
And you're on YouTube.
I'm on YouTube. Oh yeah, see, I got to make more. I'm on YouTube. I got a lot of stuff on YouTube, and that's like YouTube's my favorite side. I might start streaming and stuff more, but I'm definitely on YouTube.
Nice.
And I got a lot. Yeah, she's Jade says I should. I'm putting a little effort in that. But the YouTube game, all this stuff is you're laughing. All this stuff is kind of different because really, I probably just would have been satisfied with being on Facebook at my age. And I don't mean to put that out. I really like Instagram. I really like Instagram because nobody looks at my work on Facebook, but on Instagram, everybody looks at my work. I'm on LinkedIn too. Yeah. What I like best about LinkedIn is that all the business people look at my work on LinkedIn, and that's the one that's kind of working for my pockets. And Daisy Murray is on there too, and she's an artist I want to work with. But I know her mom, but definitely. I get exposed to like some of the dopest stuff on LinkedIn. So I'm really natively posting my stuff because I got paid for LinkedIn Premium and it's expensive. But I'm kind of like one of those people that kind of like to look at who's looking at my stuff. That's why I like to do the comic strip. Basically, the comic strip in Urban magazine in LA was free, and at that time, Melrose Avenue was a big deal. So I used to I used to live close by Fairfax, and I used to walk on Melrose and just kind of hang out and wait to see who picked up the paper at the newsstands. Just do that all day. And my son's mom, ex-girlfriend, she used to clown me about that. But basically, I got a little. It's not like I'm an egomaniac, but I really want to see people pick it up, and I want to see people reading it. Is that I really want to do that. I'm here for that.
I mean,
and that's kind of
you were kind of in front of the social media thing where you just knew what your target market was by just standing there.
I mean, and I had clothing, exactly. And that Target you're talking, I had clothing companies associated with that because I was doing it for free. So the only way for me to make money off of the herb or the source was to sell merchandise. So I had like herb, and no joke, we had the hats and the big shirts. But I
want to thank you for coming on my channel because I'm really passionate about highlighting veteran animators. And we are few in number, but there's more of us than we think there are. So I appreciate you coming. And to everyone out there, I want you to like So I Know It's Real, comment and tell me how you feel, subscribe to Seal the Deal, and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
All right, guys. Peace.